Commander Hal had seen many strange things in her 40 cycles of service with the Galactic Consortium. She had witnessed stars being born and dying. She had explored dead worlds and living nebulas. She had made first contact with 17 different species, but nothing in her long career had prepared her for what the sensors were showing her now. The human colony ship drifted through the void like a ghost. The Prometheus Dawn had been missing for 847 standard cycles. Everyone assumed the humans aboard had died long ago. Colony ships from that era were fragile things, dependent on constant maintenance and perfect conditions. When Earth lost contact with the Prometheus Dawn, they mourned and moved on. But here it was, and stranger still, it was full of life. "Commander, these readings make no sense," her science officer said. N was a species known for their perfect memory and logical minds. She had never heard confusion in his voice before. "The ship's reactor is dead. Life support is offline. The hull has multiple breaches, but I'm detecting over 50,000 human life signs inside." Hal felt her cranial ridges rise in surprise. 50,000. The ship launched with only 2,000 colonists. "Yes, Commander. Multiple generations have been born aboard that vessel." "That's impossible. How are they surviving without power, without life support?" N's tentacles curled in the gesture for complete uncertainty. "I cannot explain it with any known science." Hal studied the image of the colony ship on her view screen. It looked ancient and battered. Scorch marks covered the hull where micrometeorites had struck over centuries. Several sections were clearly exposed to vacuum, yet her sensors insisted humans were living in those very sections. "Prepare a boarding team," she ordered. "Full environmental suits. Assume nothing works on that ship. We do this carefully." 2 hours later, Hal led a team of 12 through the airlock. They had sealed their exploration vessel directly to the Prometheus Dawn's main cargo bay. The metal groaned and shuddered as they opened the inner door. The air that rushed out shouldn't have existed. The sensors said there was no atmosphere in this section, yet Hal's suit detected a breathable mixture of oxygen and nitrogen. The temperature gauge showed impossible fluctuations, jumping between freezing cold and comfortable warmth with no pattern. "Stay alert," she said to her team. "Something very wrong is happening here." They moved through dark corridors lit only by their suit lights. The ship's emergency lighting was dead. The walls were covered in strange markings, paintings that seemed to glow with their own light even though that made no sense. Hal recognized some as human religious symbols from ancient Earth. Others were newer, stranger, showing spirals and fractals that hurt to look at directly. "Commander, I'm picking up movement ahead," one of her security officers reported. "Multiple humans approaching." Hal raised her hand for the team to stop. She activated her universal translator and waited. 3 humans emerged from the darkness. They wore simple clothing that looked handmade. No environmental suits, no breathing equipment. They walked through the cold, airless corridor as casually as if they were strolling through a garden. The lead human was an elderly woman with pure white hair. Her skin was pale, paler than any human Hal had seen in records. Her eyes were an unsettling silver color that seemed to catch and reflect the suit lights. "Welcome," the woman said in perfect consortium standard. "We've been expecting you." The void whispered that someone was coming. Hal tried to keep her voice steady. "I am Commander Hal of the consortium science vessel Infinite Curiosity. We detected your ship and came to offer assistance." The old woman smiled. It was a sad, knowing expression. "Assistance? Yes. 800 years ago we could have used assistance. We screamed for it. We begged the universe for help as our systems failed one by one. But the universe doesn't answer screams, Commander. It only answers will." "I don't understand. How are you surviving? Your ship has no power, no life support. You shouldn't be able to breathe here." "Shouldn't?" The woman spoke the word like it was funny. "We heard that word a lot at the beginning. We shouldn't survive without heat. We shouldn't live without water recycling. We shouldn't breathe without oxygen generators, but we did, because we refused to die. One of Hal's team, Dr. K, stepped forward. She was a species of natural scientists and researchers. "May I scan you?" she asked the old woman. "I mean no harm, I simply want to understand." The woman nodded. "I am Keeper Miriam. Scan all you like, doctor. Though I warn you, understanding may be harder than you think." Dr. K ran her medical scanner over the three humans. Hal watched her colleague's face change from curiosity to confusion to something approaching fear. "This is impossible," Dr. K whispered. "Your cells, they're not metabolizing oxygen normally. In fact, you're not breathing at all. Your lungs move, but no gas exchange is happening. Your body temperature is ambient. Your heart rate is. It's wrong. Everything is wrong." Keeper Miriam smiled again. "Wrong by whose rules, doctor?" "By the laws of physics, by chemistry, by basic biology." "Ah, those laws." Miriam gestured for them to follow. "Come, let me show you our home. Let me show you what happens when science fails completely." They walked deeper into the ship. More humans appeared, watching the visitors with curious silver eyes. Children played in corridors that should have been freezing vacuum. An infant nursed at its mother's breast in a section where Hal's suit warned of lethal radiation levels. None of them wore protective gear. None of them seemed afraid. Miriam led them to what had once been the ship's main hydroponics bay. The equipment was rusted and dead. No plants grew in the nutrient beds, yet humans sat around a large table, eating what looked like fresh food. "How?" Dr. K asked. She was trembling now. "Where does the food come from?" "From need," Miriam said simply. "And from will, and from the collective dream of 50,000 souls who refuse to accept death." She picked up an apple from the table and offered it to Dr. K. The doctor scanned it with her device. The readings made no sense. The apple existed. It was real matter, but it had no origin point, no growth pattern. It simply was. 13 generations have been born on this ship," Miriam said. "Each generation further from Earth, further from the world where science worked perfectly. My grandparents remembered the equations, the formulas, the laws of nature. They died screaming when those laws failed them. My parents were the transition generation. They learned to survive. They learned to stop asking permission from reality." She took a bite of the apple and chewed thoughtfully. "By the time I was born, we were already changing. The children born in the deep void, far from any star, far from any gravity well, were different. We had to be." Hal found her voice. "Different how?" "Our minds are connected, not through technology, through something older. When one of us needs warmth, we all will heat into existence. When we need air, we dream it into being. When a child is hungry, 50,000 hearts create food through pure stubborn refusal to let that child starve." "That's not possible," In said. His voice was sharp with fear. "Matter cannot be created from nothing. Energy must come from somewhere. You're describing violations of thermodynamics, of causality itself." Miriam looked at him with those strange silver eyes. "You're right, it's not possible. We do it anyway." She walked to the window, a massive viewport that should have shown the void of space. Instead, it showed something else. Stars that weren't really stars, colors that didn't exist in any spectrum, patterns that made Hal's mind hurt. "Out here in the deep void, far from the material world, reality is softer," Miriam said. "The universe is younger here, more flexible. Or perhaps it's older and we're seeing what reality was before it hardened into laws and rules. We learn to work with that flexibility, to bend it, not through technology but through belief." Dr. K was frantically taking notes. "This could revolutionize everything we know. If consciousness can affect reality, if will can create matter. If consciousness can do what we do, it can also destroy," Miriam interrupted. "We're dangerous, Doctor. We know that. Why do you think we stayed out here? Why do you think we never tried to return to civilized space?" She turned back to face them. We're not human anymore, not by the definition Earth would recognize. We're something new, something that happens when science fails and instinct takes over, when evolution is replaced by pure adaptation, when natural law bows to survival. A young girl approached Miriam and took her hand. The child couldn't have been more than 5 years old. She looked at Hal and smiled. "Are you from the place where things make sense?" the girl asked. Yes, child, I suppose I am." "That must be nice. Everything here is strange. Mama says we're strange too." The girl reached out toward Hal. Her small hand passed through the commander's suit as if it wasn't there. Hal felt a cold touch on her actual skin beneath the environmental protection. She jerked back in shock. The girl giggled. "You're afraid, it's okay. Everyone is afraid of us at first." Miriam gently pulled the child back. "Forgive her. The young ones don't always remember that matter is supposed to be solid. They were born in the void. They've never known a universe of hard rules." Hal's mind was reeling. "We need to help you. We need to bring you back to civilization to study what's happened to you." "To study us?" Miriam's voice was sad. "Commander, we're not sick. We're not broken. We're adapted. But yes, I expected this. I know what will happen next. You'll report to your consortium. They'll be terrified. They'll see us as a threat to their ordered universe. They'll want to contain us." "I don't want that," Hal said, and realized it was true. "I want to understand." "Understanding may not be enough." Miriam walked back to the viewport. "We survived when science failed us completely. We learned to thrive when every equation, every theory, every law of nature proved worthless. We became something your people can't explain. And what people can't explain, they fear. What they fear, they try to destroy." She placed her hand on the cold glass. Outside, the impossible stars seemed to pulse in response. "Go back to your ship, Commander. Make your report. Tell them you found humans who broke reality by refusing to die. Tell them we're not coming back to civilized space. We belong here now, in the spaces between galaxies, where the universe is still deciding what rules to follow." Dr. K spoke urgently. "We need more data, more scans. We need to understand how this is possible." Miriam looked at her with infinite patience. "Doctor, some things aren't meant to be understood. Some things are meant to be survived. We survived. That's all that matters." Hal knew she should argue. She should insist on taking samples, on running tests. But looking into Miriam's silver eyes, she felt something she'd never experienced before. Not fear, exactly. More like vertigo, the sensation of standing at the edge of a vast unknown. "We'll leave," she said quietly. "But we'll be back, others will come." "I know," Miriam said. "The void told me. It tells us many things now. We'll be ready." As Hal led her team back through the dark corridors, she heard singing. Human voices raised in harmony, creating music that seemed to resonate through the ship's bones. The sound followed them all the way back to their vessel. When they sealed the airlock and detached from the Prometheus Dawn, Hal looked back at the ancient colony ship. It hung in space like a monument to impossible survival. "What do we tell them?" N asked. "The consortium will want answers." Hal touched the comm panel. "We tell them the truth. We tell them we found humans who learned to survive when science failed completely. And we tell them to be very, very careful about what comes next." Behind them, the Prometheus Dawn drifted back into the darkness, its impossible inhabitants continuing their impossible existence. And in the deep void between galaxies, reality bent just a little bit further. Dr. K passed through the containment fields alone. She had left her environmental suit behind. It felt like a statement of trust, though she knew it was also foolish. If the Voidborn couldn't protect her in vacuum, she would die in seconds. But as she stepped into the airless corridor of the Prometheus Dawn, she found she could breathe. The air that shouldn't exist filled her lungs. She felt cold metal under her feet, felt warmth on her skin that had no source. It was terrifying and wonderful at the same time. Keeper Miriam waited for her in the same corridor where they'd first met. The old woman looked exactly the same, those silver eyes reflecting light that wasn't there. "You came back," Miriam said. "I want to learn, not to study you like specimens, to actually learn from you." Miriam smiled. "Then you're already ahead of your colleagues. Come, let me show you what happened to us. Really show you, not just scans and data." She led Dr. K deeper into the ship. They passed families living in sections that had been dead for centuries. They saw workshops where humans crafted tools by hand, singing as they worked. They entered a vast chamber that had once been a cargo hold but now served as something else. Thousands of humans sat in concentric circles on the floor. Their eyes were closed. They breathed in perfect synchronization. The air around them shimmered with patterns that Dr. K's scientific mind insisted couldn't exist. "This is where we gather," Miriam said quietly. "Where we connect, where we remember who we are and what we had to become." What are they doing? Dreaming together, maintaining reality. You see, Doctor, it takes effort to exist the way we do. We have to constantly remind the universe that we're here, that we refuse to follow its rules. If we stopped, if we gave up, physics would reassert itself and we'd all die. Dr. K watched in awe. "How did you learn to do this?" "We didn't learn, we survived. Let me tell you the real story, the one I didn't tell you before." Miriam sat on the cold floor and gestured for Dr. K to join her. "When the reactor died, we had maybe 72 hours before the life support failed completely. We tried everything we knew. We followed every procedure, every emergency protocol. We prayed to science to save us. It didn't." Her voice was distant, remembering. "People started dying on the fourth day. The cold took them first, then the lack of oxygen. We sealed ourselves into smaller and smaller sections, trying to preserve what little air remained. By the end of the first week, half of us were dead." "But you survived." "No, we died too, all of us. Every single person aboard this ship died in those first few weeks." Dr. K felt her heart skip. "I don't understand." "We died, and then we refused to stay dead." Miriam's eyes gleamed in the strange light. "There's a moment, Doctor. A moment when your body fails and your mind realizes that all the rules you've lived by are about to be enforced. Death is the ultimate law, the one thing science says you cannot escape." She leaned forward. "But out here in the deep void, even that law is negotiable. We hit that moment, that instant of death, and something in us just refused, not out of technology, not out of medicine, out of pure, stubborn human will." "That's impossible." "You keep using that word. We kept using it too at first. But impossible is just another word for nobody's done it yet. We did it. We came back from death because we wanted to live more than we believed in dying." Miriam stood and walked to one of the sleeping humans. She touched the woman's shoulder gently. "This is Sarah. She's been dead for 300 years by the standard definition. Her heart doesn't beat. Her brain doesn't fire electrical signals the way yours does, but she thinks. She loves. She dreams. She exists because she chooses to, because we all choose to together." Dr. K's scientific training screamed that this was wrong, but she could see Sarah breathing, could see the gentle rise and fall of her chest, could see, with her own eyes, the impossible made real. "The first generation, my ancestors, they suffered the most," Miriam continued. "They still believed in the old rules. They died and came back and died again, fighting themselves, fighting reality. But each generation was born further from those beliefs. My generation, the 13th, we never knew a universe of hard rules. We were born in possibility." She gestured to the gathered humans. "And now we maintain that possibility. We hold the door open between what is and what can be. We exist in the liminal space where reality hasn't decided yet." "Can you teach others?" Dr. K asked. "Can someone like me learn to do this?" Miriam's expression turned sad. "Some can. Most can't. It requires letting go of everything you think you know, It requires dying to certainty. Most beings would rather die for real than give up their understanding of how the universe works. I want to try. I know that's why you're here. Over the following weeks, Dr. K lived aboard the Prometheus Dawn. She removed her environmental suit permanently. At first, she panicked constantly, waiting for the vacuum to kill her. It didn't. Slowly, hour by hour, she learned to breathe air that shouldn't exist. The void-born children took to her immediately. They would play games where they walked through walls, where they made toys appear and disappear. They thought it was hilarious that Dr. K couldn't do these things. "You think too much," a little boy told her. "You keep asking how, just do." "But there has to be a mechanism," Dr. K protested. "Some explanation." "Why?" the boy asked. "Does the universe ask permission before existing? Do stars ask how to burn? They just are, we just are." It was a child's logic, but it contained a truth that Dr. K's scientific mind struggled to accept. Maybe that was the point. She sat with the gathered humans during their collective meditations. At first, she felt nothing. Then, gradually, she began to sense something. Not thoughts exactly, but presence, awareness, the feeling of being connected to thousands of minds all dreaming the same dream. One night, or what passed for night on the timeless ship, she woke to find she was floating 6 inches above her bunk. She gasped and immediately fell back down. Miriam, who somehow knew everything that happened on the ship, visited her the next morning. "You're starting to feel it, the flexibility, the possibility." "I was floating," Dr. K said, still shaken. "For just a moment, I forgot that gravity should hold me down." "Good, now you're beginning to understand. It's not about power, it's about permission. You spent your whole life asking reality for permission to exist. We stopped asking. But there have to be limits. You can't just do anything." "Can't we?" Miriam smiled. "We're still discovering what we can do. Every generation pushes further. The children born now, the youngest ones, they're already beyond what I can do. They exist in states I can barely comprehend. Give us another 1,000 years and we might not be recognizable as physical beings at all." Dr. K transmitted her findings back through the containment fields. She sent detailed reports about what she was learning, about the nature of the void-born abilities. She tried to explain it in scientific terms, but the words kept failing her. "How do you describe in equations what it feels like to exist in 2 states at once? How do you measure the strength of collective will? How do you quantify the moment when someone decides they don't have to follow the rules anymore?" Her reports created chaos in the consortium. Some scientists became obsessed with studying the phenomenon. Others declared it impossible and refused to accept the data. Religious groups called the void-born everything from ascended beings to demons. Politicians argued about what it meant for governance if consciousness could override physical law. And on Earth, humanity watched and wondered. If some humans could become this, could they all? Should they? Did they want to? The debate raged for 5 standard cycles. During that time, Dr. K continued to live aboard the Prometheus Dawn. She learned to walk through walls, though it took her months, and she could only do it when she stopped thinking about it. She learned to create small objects through focused intention, though they lasted only minutes before dissolving back into possibility. She was changing, she could feel it. Her thoughts were different, less linear, more fluid. She still had her scientific knowledge, but it existed alongside something else now, an understanding that didn't come from study but from direct experience. On the 5th anniversary of the quarantine, Chancellor made an announcement. Representatives from across the consortium gathered in the council chamber. Dr. K watched via transmission from the Prometheus Dawn. "We have studied the void-born humans for 5 cycles," the Chancellor said. "We have debated their nature and their threat. We have tried to contain them and failed. We attempted to destroy them and failed. It is time to acknowledge a difficult truth." He paused, his 4 arms spread wide. "These humans are not a threat. They are an evolution, a new way of existing that we don't fully understand. And perhaps more importantly, they represent something we must learn if we are to survive as a galactic civilization. Murmurs ran through the chamber. "What do you mean, Chancellor?" someone asked. "I mean that we have built our entire civilization on the assumption that reality is fixed, that the laws of physics are absolute, that consciousness is merely an emergent property of matter. The Voidborn prove that every one of these assumptions is wrong." He activated a display showing the deep void beyond known space. "The galaxy is vast, but it is finite. Eventually, we will push beyond it. We will venture into the true void, the spaces between galaxies where matter is scarce and reality is thin. If we go there with our rigid assumptions, with our certainty that we know how the universe works, we will die just as the Prometheus Dawn's systems died." "You're suggesting we learn from them," Dr. K's colleague said, "that we intentionally develop these abilities." "I'm suggesting we give people the choice," replied. "The Voidborn have offered to teach anyone who wishes to learn, not to force it upon us, but to offer it as an option, a new path for species willing to question their certainty." The chamber erupted in argument, but raised his staff and his voice. "The quarantine is ended. The Prometheus Dawn is free to go where it wishes, and any being who wishes to learn from them may do so. But I warn you all, this path is not easy. It requires giving up everything you think you know. It requires dying to certainty and being reborn in possibility." He looked directly at the camera, as if speaking to everyone watching across the galaxy. "The void-born humans survived when science failed them completely. They learned to thrive in a place where our laws don't work. They became living proof that consciousness matters, that will is a force unto itself, that reality is far stranger and more flexible than we ever imagined. We can learn from them, or we can cling to our comfortable certainties, but the universe is bigger than our understanding of it. And one day, that truth will find us all." The vote was close, but it passed. The containment fields came down. For the first time in 5 cycles, the Prometheus Dawn was free. Miriam stood at the viewport, watching the barriers dissolve. Dr. K stood beside her, no longer entirely the person she had been. "What will you do now?" Dr. K asked. "Stay here mostly. This is our home, but we'll accept visitors. Teachers will go out to those who want to learn. We'll share what we know. And if some people use this knowledge for harm..." Miriam shrugged. "They will, that's the nature of any power, but more will use it to survive, to adapt, to become something new. Isn't that what life does? Change, adapt, refuse to die." Over the following years, a strange new culture developed around the Prometheus Dawn. Thousands of beings from hundreds of species came to learn from the Voidborn. Most failed. The psychological requirements were too extreme, but some succeeded. A scientist learned to exist in multiple quantum states, revolutionizing physics research. An artist learned to create sculptures that existed only in shared perception, creating a new art form. A human from Earth, a young woman named, spent 3 years aboard the ship and emerged able to survive in hard vacuum. She became the first to willingly join the Voidborn, the first to choose transformation. Not everyone was happy. Factions in several species declared the Voidborn a corruption. Wars were threatened, but they never materialized, because the Voidborn never forced anyone, never invaded, never threatened. They simply existed, impossible and patient, teaching those who came to them with open minds. Dr. K eventually returned to her people, but she was changed forever. She wrote books about her experience, founded a new field of study she called consciousness physics. She argued that awareness was not just a byproduct of brain activity but a fundamental force, like gravity or electromagnetism. Most scientists mocked her. Some understood, and a brave few, began to experiment with the implications. 50 standard cycles after first contact, the consortium launched a new kind of colony ship. It carried both traditional life support systems and void-trained humans who could maintain existence if those systems failed. It was sent to explore the true deep void, the spaces between galaxy clusters where no ship had ever gone. The crew reported strange things. Reality behaved differently out there, just as Miriam had said, but they survived. They adapted. They learned to navigate by consciousness as much as by instruments. Humanity, once the newcomers to galactic civilization, became the guides to the unknown, not through military might, not through advanced technology, but through their stubborn refusal to accept that anything was truly impossible. Keeper Miriam lived another 100 cycles, the oldest void-born human ever recorded. When she finally chose to stop existing, to let go of her negotiation with reality, the entire population of the Prometheus Dawn gathered to witness. She stood in the main chamber, surrounded by her people. Her silver eyes were bright with something that might have been joy. "I'm tired," she said simply. "I've held on for so long, but I'm not afraid anymore. The void showed me that endings are just another kind of transformation." "What should we do?" someone asked. "How do we carry on without you?" Miriam smiled her patient smile one last time. "The same way we always have, by refusing to die, by questioning everything you think you know, by remembering that science is a wonderful servant but a terrible master, by surviving." She closed her eyes. Her body began to dissolve into light, into possibility, into the flexible reality of the deep void. She didn't die, not really. She just changed, became something else, something the others could feel but not quite see. The Voidborn mourned her in their own way, by singing. Their voices rose in harmony, creating patterns in the air that shimmered with meaning. They sang for 3 days and 3 nights, and beings across the galaxy reported strange dreams, feeling connected to something vast and ancient and very, very human. Centuries passed. The Voidborn grew in number and in strangeness. They established outposts in the deep void, living sculptures of defiant impossibility. They welcomed any who came to learn, though fewer and fewer succeeded as generations passed. Because the galaxy was becoming more certain again, more fixed. The first contact with the Voidborn had shaken everyone's assumptions, but assumptions have a way of reasserting themselves. Most species returned to their comfortable certainties, their predictable physics, their safe understanding of reality. But some didn't. Some carried the lesson forward. Some taught their children that the universe was stranger than it seemed. That consciousness mattered. That could shape reality if you refused to accept limitations. And in the very deep void, in the spaces between galaxies where matter was scarce and reality was thin, the descendants of the Prometheus Dawn continued their impossible existence. They were guardians now, teachers, living proof that when science fails completely, when every theory and equation proves worthless, humanity doesn't give up. Humanity adapts. Humanity survives. Humanity says no to the universe and makes it stick. One day, perhaps, when the galaxy ventures beyond its borders into the true unknown, when civilizations face conditions no textbook prepared them for, they will remember. They will remember the humans who learned to survive when science failed them completely. They will remember that reality is negotiable, that consciousness is power, that the universe is far more flexible than anyone wants to admit. And they will carry that knowledge into the dark, into the void, into whatever strange and impossible futures await. Because that's what life does. It adapts, it survives, it refuses to die. And humanity, born in the void where certainty goes to die, will show them how. In the empty spaces between galaxies, where physics becomes a suggestion and consciousness becomes a force, the void-born humans sang their strange songs. They raised their children in impossible conditions. They existed in defiance of natural law. And they waited, patient as stars, for the rest of the galaxy to catch up to what they learned centuries ago. That the only truly impossible thing is the limit of what life will do to survive. The universe had tried to kill them. Science had failed them. Reality itself had broken down. They survived anyway. Because they were human. And humans don't ask permission.